I'll tell you my concerns with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let me kind of simplify this. I do think they're being overlooked. The good news is I don't think J.J. Redick's going to overlook them. I don't think the Lakers are going to overlook them. But do I think the media is saying that, hey, the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have a chance against the Lakers? Sure. I think that's happening right now. Part of the podcast I was listening to yesterday, and I think I had mentioned this because JJ had mentioned it. The Minnesota Timberwolves are top 10 in defense and top 10 in offense. That's the first time they've been top 10 in both of those categories since 2004, when I think they got to the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. So clearly this team is doing something right. I do think they're a good team. Here's what I tell you are my main concerns with the Minnesota Timberwolves coming into the series. Okay. Number one, they got phenomenal depth. They're playing 8-9 guys a night. And I know for the playoffs, you tighten your rotation. That's fine. But they have real players. They're 3 players that they can play off the bench. No question about it. That's going to get a lot of minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Nickeil Walker-Alexander. There's another player. There's 3 right there. They've got a really nice starting lineup, and they got phenomenal depth. So if you think that, you're just, we just got to worry about the starters, and then once their bench players come in, Lakers can take over. Not happen. They go 8 to 9 deep. I think it's going to be tough to win some of those bench matchups against the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially if, kind of just pay attention to this. I can help simplify it here. Dante DiVincenzo gives you 12 to 15 points, or Naz Reid comes off the bench, gives you 15 points, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker gives you, I'm making up numbers here. I'm not telling you that this is going to happen every single time. They're going to put up numbers. They're going to have some type of impact. So I think one of the concerns I have is the depth and the bench that the Minnesota Timberwolves have. Now, that doesn't mean the Lakers don't have a bench. You clearly have Dorian Finney-Smith coming off the bench. Vando's going to be there. Gabe Vincent's going to be there. Probably Jordan Goodwin, and you're not going further than that. Unless the Lakers just need size and they need another big because it's Gobert, it's Naz Reid, it's Julius Randle. They got kind of a couple of bangers, but really it's Gobert. That's the real size for them, at least is playing around the basket. But with all that being said, I think you got to give the Minnesota Timberwolves some credit from a bench perspective. I do like the bench players that they have. Their bench players probably more consistent than our bench players. I think the Lakers have had games where Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent have been phenomenal. I think Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, they're just like, this is what they do on a night in, night out basis. You kind of know what you're going to get. Another thing that I'd be concerned about, or I'd look at against the Minnesota Timberwolves and say, okay, here's an area where Minnesota can be a problem or a headache as well. The size. There's a big size difference. Now, for the Lakers so far, it hasn't really hurt them. I remember I had Amin El-Hassan was on the show. This was about a month ago or so. I'm very curious to see how the playoffs play out as well, because some of the things Amin was predicting was eventually the size and the lack of rebounding is going to come back and hurt you. He also mentioned J.J. Redick in his first year as a head coach. That's also going to have an effect. So I'm very curious if this first round, or even if it's the second round, if Lakers are there and they got the Houston Rockets, how much is size, rebounding, how much of that stuff is going to hurt the Lakers, or how much were the Lakers able to kind of calm the water when it came to that? But the size difference, here's going to be the question. Listening to that podcast yesterday, I guess Rudy Gobert has been killing it for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's actually look. I'm curious to see if some of his stats, as of late. The point that they were trying to make is that he's been really, really good for them over the course of this, let's call it last month or so. He's been putting up monster numbers. We'll take a look. We'll kind of see his last few games, what's he been putting up. A 19-18, a 35-11, damn. A 13-8, a 23-19. Okay, so he's been putting up some numbers. So Gobert clearly has been putting up some numbers for them. Gobert doesn't really concern me as much. I mean, to be honest with you, I think his presence on defense will be where I'm most curious. But I think the Lakers will I think they'll be strategic with Gobert. I don't know how great Gobert is going to be in the lineup for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he'll have moments, but when the Lakers go small, do they want Gobert in there? Well, then they go Naz Reid, Julius Randle. So that's something to keep in mind. But the question that I would have for the Lakers against Minnesota, Are you getting beat up off the glass? Are a lot of these putbacks and tip-ins coming in easy for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Is the size a big disadvantage? So far I got the bench. I got some of the size. And the last thing that I just want to mention here that I think would be a concern against Minnesota, balance. If they have a balanced attack where it's not all predicated and depending on Anthony Edwards, that's where I think the Minnesota Timberwolves can be a real problem. They're going to need 5 or 6 guys in double figures a night. And if they're getting 5 or 6 guys, if it's this, hey, Ant got 40, but nobody else really contributed, Lakers will be fine. If it's Ant got 28, but Naz Reid gave you 14, and Julius Randle gave you 18 and 11, and Gobert gave you 12 and 12, and go down the list. Mike Conley chipped in with 12, and Dante. That's where I think Minnesota can probably be at their best against the Lakers is they got a number of different guys that are contributing on a night-in, night-out basis. You don't have to do it every night. You got to do it 4 times to win the series. And I think that's the one area that I'd look at and say, is this everything's on Ant's shoulders, or they really built the right team around him where it's not all on his shoulders? I've said this before. I was not a fan of that trade when they traded for Karl Anthony Towns, but here they are. I think Minnesota's only a game difference than they were a year ago. Now, I know that's not the same thing from the standings perspective. Ant is a year older. Julius Randle's done a pretty good job for them this year. They got, obviously, players that they like. They like the mix of players that they have. I just wouldn't underestimate the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think at the end of the day, that would be my main point. I feel like Laker fans and Lakers media, everybody's just underestimating, like, hey, no problem, Minnesota in the first round. I do think Lakers are going to win. I do think they're going to win in 6, but that would be my only concern. They got good players. They got a really young 23-year-old in Anthony Edwards. There are some areas where I think they're going to have some advantage, whether it's going to be depth or it's going to be some of the size that they have. But I think the thing that I feel best about, I genuinely don't think J.J. Redick, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, go down the list of these Laker players. I don't think they're going to actually underestimate the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, yes, I do think the Lakers are going to win, but at the same time, I think there could be some headaches along the way. Okay, let's take a look here, and let's start looking at some of the comments. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, Slee, my only worry is that LeBron is simply not healthy whatsoever. Those groin injuries are difficult to heal. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying this because I've heard other people saying this at different times. I think other people have talked about in regards to LeBron. If I think the Lakers, nobody's saying anything. Nobody said anything on Sunday or nobody said anything on Friday after the game. Nobody said anything on Sunday. I think the fact that he gets a full week off. Listen, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. But LeBron was playing some phenomenal ball over these last couple of games, so I'm less inclined to worry about it. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Just say no to coffee, okay? Jonathan, you okay over there? What's going on over here, Jonathan? You all good? Everything okay there, brother? Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. No idea what you're talking about, but thank you for being here. Okay, let's get another one of these. Yeah, well, we're gonna let Jonathan. We'll give him his own time to himself. He'll be okay. He'll be all right. He'll make it. I got faith. All right, let's take a look. Conley going to be hunted? Oh, they'll go after Conley. No question about it. No question about it. They'll go after Conley. Just like I think there's going to be a lot of times where, obviously the Lakers will probably, or Minnesota's going to go after Luka, or they'll go after Austin Reeves. Guys are going to be hunted. That's what happens in the playoffs. Guys get hunted all the time. All right, let me see a couple more here that's in regards. More worried about Nas than Rudy, to be honest. Rudy Gobert has this wild. It's kind of funny. There's so much hate that goes towards Rudy Gobert. I don't know if I fully understand it, but kind of is what it is, I guess. But I'm with you that Gobert is not someone that really scares me. He doesn't. Now, Gobert can be a presence on the defensive side, sure. Give him the credit from that perspective. But I look at a lineup for them. Are they better off saying, okay, well, if Lakers are going to use LeBron as their 5, does Julius Randle become the 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves? And if he does become the 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves, all right, what's it all look like from there? Now it's Naz Reid. It's, guys that can switch on defense. Now their defense does drop without Rudy Gobert. So now it's up to the Lakers to try to take advantage from that perspective. But Naz Reid has always been kind of a Laker killer, to be honest with you. Playoff is about IQ and adjustments. LeBron, JJ, and Luka are all off the charts. Let's see what else we got here. What was wrong with Jonathan? What's going on with that? I was looking at some comments. I'm like, everybody's saying, like, can you block this guy? I'm like, I don't even know which guy we're talking about. Okay, this is a really, really good comment because this is kind of part of just how random this series is going to be. Data3 says, can we get stats from the 4 games this year between Lakers and the Wolves? I can't get those to you. Here's the only problem. 3 of those games came before Luka got traded to the Lakers. So they were still, with Anthony Davis. And the only game they played, the 4th game they played, was the Minnesota Timberwolves didn't have Julius Randle and they didn't have Rudy Gobert. So literally, I don't think there's anything that we can take from any of the games that the Lakers played the Minnesota Timberwolves. You guys remembered me kind of harping on this in the past. Every time the Lakers were about to face a new team, I'm like, hey, this is exciting. Because I've never seen Luka against Denver in a Laker jersey. I've never seen Luka and LeBron together at Memphis, or Luka and LeBron together with Austin Reeves at OKC or against Houston. So there were so many matchups that we got to towards the end of the season. Golden State Warriors is another good example. There are so many matchups we got to towards the end of the season where we just didn't have any data on what these two squads look like against each other. It's going to be the exact same thing for Minnesota. What can you take away from a game that you played in February against Minnesota and they didn't have Rudy Gobert and they didn't have Julius Randle? I can't take much away from that game. I just can't. And the way that team was back then, the way the Lakers were back then and where they are today, I don't think there's nothing that any of us can look at. And I think we're going to have to wait till after game 1, which is going to be on Saturday night, to finally say, okay, hey, we got something. And now we know how this team's going to play the Lakers. Now we know a little bit of their rotations. Now we know who's the closing 5 for the Lakers versus the closing 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think we have any of that right now. It's a great point. It's a good question, but I just don't think it's relevant. All right, thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.